But first up, we've got a headline story. We've got to bring in our friend, respected former National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien. He's going to bring us up to speed on what looks like, incredibly, an outright shooting war between Russia and the Ukraine. And then I guess, what, if anything, should the Biden administration do? So, Robert, welcome back, as always, my brother. But the intel now, everybody agrees on the intel. Maybe the timing is up for grabs. They're putting in what that says 175,000 Russian troops. I presume that's in eastern Ukraine. I mean, what do you make of this? This is like crazy, crazy stuff. But there you have it.
Well, thanks, Larry. And first, let me join you in sending condolences to Liz Dole and Elizabeth Dole and the Dole family. I first met Bob Dole back in 1982 at a Teenage Republican Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C., and had the opportunity to get together with him many times over the years. And what a great American fellow soldier, and did terrific work for us, starting out his career as a hero in Italy and doing great things through his entire career. So our thoughts and prayers are with his family, and we appreciate his many years of service to the country. Look, this Russia thing is something that's not surprising. You and I both know that peace with strength works, and weakness is provocative. So we've now got Putin, who's very opportunistic, massing these troops on the border. Our friend John Radcliffe, the former director of national intelligence, was on Trey Gowdy's show last night. He seems to think the intelligence is strong. The Washington Post had a very detailed piece on it today. So Putin is pushing these troops up on the Ukrainian border. And the question is, what does he want? And there are two big things he wants. He wants to make sure that Ukraine never becomes part of NATO. And second, that they don't become part of the EU. And he's going to flex his muscle. He's going to be opportunistic here. Unfortunately, we had some great tools. We had Nord Stream 2, which you and I and Pompeo and Mnuchin and, of course, President Trump helped stop during our time in office. And that was given to the Russians, and we asked nothing in return. The New START nuclear deal was extended. Again, nothing was asked for in return. And now the two of the best bargaining chips we have are gone as the Russians mass troops on the Ukraine border, and Putin is going to, like the Russians always do, say, "What have you done for me lately?" And he's pocketed those two concessions, and now he's going to look for more.
I don't need to remind you, but I'll just put it out there. I think it was 2014 that Putin just up and took the Crimea. I mean, he just took that, and at the time, President Obama was, I don't know, he seemed angry. He said there are red lines, but nothing ever happened. Russia still has the Crimea, so they got that. This one, eastern Ukraine's not going to be enough. They want to go all the way to Kiev, a coup d'etat. I know these are hard questions to answer, Robert. I just wondered what you're thinking about it and what you're hearing.
Well, listen, he's got the force to do it if the West doesn't intervene. It's hard to see the Germans or others having the spine to intervene in a crisis like this. I mean, he's going to have a tough time biting off Ukraine. I've been to Ukraine. I was there for their elections in 2014, especially in Western Ukraine, where they're really European-facing. They're Catholic. They don't speak Russian. If Putin does try and gobble up the entire Ukraine, he may be able to win the initial war, but he's going to face an insurgency there that's going to last many, many years. But importantly for us is we have to deter him from entering into Ukraine to begin with, and that's a critical period of time that we have right now. We need to let Russia know there'll be a heavy price to pay. Look, it's not just Ukraine, because as the Russians eye Ukraine, the Chinese are getting bolder and bolder and more aggressive with respect to Taiwan. We could face a situation where you have, for the first time since the Second World War, two major powers invading a country in Europe and invading another country in Asia at the same time. That's going to place the United States and the free world in a tough position.
Robert O'Brien, there's a virtual phone call tomorrow, according to reports, between President Biden and President Putin. What do you reckon Biden's going to say? I mean, what should this administration do? Surely you're absolutely dead right to renew and restore the sanctions, but I don't think that by itself is going to be enough. So Biden will say what, do you think?
Well, look, he's going to have to let the Russians know that if they go forward with an invasion of the Ukraine, that ends their integration into the world economy. I mean, that you would have to cut Russia off entirely from all the imports and exports from Europe. That'll be tough to do because you'll have to rally Germany, which has been so friendly to Russia and so soft on Russia over the years, and our other European allies. You'll have to rally them to do so. But that's the threat, and push. We don't want to push the Russians into the arms of the Chinese, but we have to let the Russians know you're cut off from the West, and you'll have China, and you'll basically become a satellite of China, and you'll become the second man in charge of a two-country empire. And trust me, Xi's the top dog in that relationship for sure, and I think Putin knows it. But we have to make sure the Russians know that if they invade Ukraine, they're done with the West, and it's not just going to be a slap on the wrist. Hopefully that's the message that President Biden will send. I think it's good that the president talks to the president of Russia. There's nothing wrong with that, but I hope he's got a very effective message to send, so we don't project further weakness, even inadvertently, to the Russians, so that they think they've got some sort of green light to go into Ukraine.
So really, you're suggesting a total economic and business sanction, banks, everything. And you're right about Germany. Germany has been terrible on this. But Robert, as you know, I mean, when we talked about the original shutdown of Nord Stream 2, the Europeans were with us. The EU was with us.
Yeah.
The only holdout was Germany. And I just wondered, the EU, particularly the Eastern and Central European countries, but I think even the Western ones, they might just go with sanctions. I mean, I don't think Macron wants to see Russia take over the Ukraine and then Lord knows what else.
No, I was very encouraged by President Macron's statements. And he's taken a hard line on Ukraine, and President Macron's a fighter and is a tough guy. So I was very encouraged by his statements. And look, I think the German people were with us on Nord Stream 2. The German people don't want this, but it's the German elites. It was Chancellor Merkel and their former Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder, who's now a full-time employee of the Russians with Gazprom. Nord Stream 2 is a German elite deal. It's not something the German people want. The German people don't want to be totally dependent on the Russians for the energy and their ability to heat their homes and drive their cars or do anything else that they do. But the German elite were bent on doing this deal, and we stopped it. It may be one of the few chips we have left to play on this Ukraine situation. I hope we'll keep it on the table.
Robert, how much does this Ukrainian threat and China air buzzing Taiwan repeatedly? I might add, China not giving a hoot about the tennis player Peng. They won't deal with her sexual assault charge. Nobody knows where she is or whether we should go to the Olympics. How much of this stems from Afghanistan?
Well, look, peace through strength works, and weakness in international affairs is provocative, and the perception of weakness is provocative. And foreigners who've watched Afghanistan and the debacle of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, foreigners who've watched us unable to defend the border. I mean, we're requiring people to test for COVID 24 hours before they come back to the U.S. if they're flying through JFK or LAX. But if you come over the southern border, you don't need to wear a mask. You don't need to test for COVID. You come right in and sign up for health benefits and welfare. And so folks overseas are watching this. They're watching the inflation. They're watching the smash and grab robberies that are taking place in places like Los Angeles and Chicago. And America does not look strong. And so we've got to fix that. We've got to present a peace through strength posture to the world. And part of that is rebuilding the Navy. The Chinese have built the 355 ship Navy that we had planned under the Trump administration. We're at 289 ships. The Chinese are now going to 400. We can't seem to get out of first gear on that front. So we need to start doing things that demonstrate that we're strong. That Afghanistan was, while it was a catastrophe as far as it went, we're still a superpower, and we're not going to let something like that happen again in the Ukraine or in Taiwan or elsewhere in the world.
I sincerely hope so. Former National Security Advisor, Ambassador Robert Bryan, thank you, sir. Tough stuff.
Great to be with you, Larry.
Yeah, we'll soon. Going to come back soon.